سلطانه وواسع فضله وعظيم نواله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله.
Habib began by
إن الخليقة
the testification
خيرة البرية
and bearing witness that the last and final messenger is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who is the light of Allah and His mercy,
وأعظم مظهر
and the greatest manifestation of Allah's benevolence and favor upon creation, Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ,
الذي
the one
كان همه
whose concerns
أن تكون أمته
were that his ummah
معه
be with him
في الجنة.
in paradise.
اللهم اجعلنا
So may Allah make us, oh Allah, make us from the elect of, or the closest of His friends, companions and His those who serve Him,
برسائه
and the best of those who are in His company in the day of judgment and in paradise with ease and well-being.
ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue
سنة في كتاب
our lessons in the book
الأربعين الأصل
The
الإمام
40
الغزالي.
Foundations by Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him,
ووصلنا
and we reached
في القسم الثاني
the second section
من هذا الكتاب
in this book,
وفيه 10 فصول.
and there are 10 subsections inside this.
الأصل الأول
The first subsection is related to prayer, and we mentioned
أول الكتاب
that in the beginning of the book,
أن المطلوب
what is
من العبد
required of a servant,
أن يكون
of a slave of Allah,
مقيم
is to be
الصلاة
one who establishes prayer,
من المحافظين
and those who preserve and guard their prayer.
هكذا الله
This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praised them in the Quran. Allah did not praise them
من
by
بالصلاة
one who prays only. In fact, He praised them by for establishing prayer, and we've been commanded to establish prayer. We haven't been commanded to pray, we have been commanded to establish prayer.
انظروا إلى القرآن
Look at the Quran, all of the Quran, you will find that whenever Allah has commanded us to pray, He has commanded us to establish prayer.
أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا
He could have said, "Oh, you who believe, pray and give charity
وأعملوا صالحا.
and do good deeds."
يا أيها الذين آمنوا أقيموا الصلاة.
He said, "Oh, you who believe, establish the prayer."
الإمام الغزالي
So Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him, in this subsection he's clarifying for us how do we reach that level where we become those who establish the prayer. How do we reach that level? And if you reach that level, then you will be from those whom Allah has praised in the Quran. Truly the believers are successful, those who are who have khushu in their prayer. So in the last lesson we took the first point in regards to how you can be from those who establish prayer, and that is wudu, that is your purification. This is something we covered in the previous lessons. If you are consistent in your wudu by doing all of its pillars, all of its the recommended acts, and you stay away from all the things that break the wudu, and you stay in that state, then you have crossed that first level, because wudu is the key to the prayer, and based on your wudu, your prayer, your focus, your khushu in prayer depends on how you make wudu. It has been narrated from Sayyidina Ali Zayn al-Abidin that when he would make wudu, he would turn pale. This happens. Someone would call it being anxious. People get people turn people they have fear. So Sayyidina Ali Zayn al-Abidin when he would make wudu, he would have this anxiety, which is not a negative anxiety. It's not like it is a spiritual state, and he would get this state whenever he would make wudu. And then somebody asked him, why do you get this state? And he responded by saying, do you not know who I'm about to stand before? This wudu would prepare him to stand before in that great presence. So in this lesson, we'll mention the benefits of wudu, which we've covered before, but we'll repeat. There are a lot of benefits. From the benefits of wudu is that it makes a person having peace of mind, and also the devils stay away from him. And wudu makes the memory strong. Wudu makes fear go away, especially fear that comes from devil, anxiety and depression. It takes all of that away. And also from the benefits of wudu is that it weakens prohibited desires. So if a person has desires stirred in him that are prohibited, then he should go and make wudu, because desires are basically the fire of the devil, and nothing extinguishes that fire except the secrets of wudu. Also, from the benefits of wudu is that it weakens the effect of magic and evil eye and things like of that sort. Also, from the effects of wudu is that it helps you in obeying Allah Azza wa Jal. It's also the one who is in wudu is the one who is with angels all the time. From the benefits of wudu is that the person is ready for death at any moment. They say, how do you prepare for death? With two things. With sincere tawbah, sincere repentance. As long as you are repentant to Allah, you are ready for death wherever you are. And secondly, you prepare for death by being in wudu. So if you're in wudu, then it'll be easy for you to say the shahada at the time of death. So every one of us should strive hard to stay in wudu as much as they can. And whoever gets accustomed to this, it becomes easy for it becomes easy for him. He doesn't find it as a burden. And we ask Allah that He grants us enabling grace to do so. Today we'll complete the second point, which is of how to be one of those who establish the prayer.
من كتاب الأربعين في أصول الدين للإمام أبي حامد الغزالي رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا به وبكم وجمعنا به وبكم ومشايخنا في الدرس الأعلى ورضي الله عنكم. إلى أن قال: المحافظة الثانية أن تحافظ على سنن الصلاة وأعمالها الظاهرة وأذكارها وتسبيحاتها حتى تأتي فيها بجميع السنن والآداب والهيئات كما جمعناها في كتاب بداية البداية، فإن لكل واحد منها سرا وله تأثير في القلب كما نبهنا عليه في تأثير الطهارة، بل أشد وأبلغ وشرح ذلك يطول. وأنت إذا أتيت بذلك انتفعت به وإن لم تعلم أسراره، كما ينتفع شارب الدواء بشربه وإن لم يعرف طبائع أخلاطه ووجوه مناسبته لمرضه.
So this is the second point, to be of those who establish their prayer, is to guard the sunnahs and the outward actions of prayers and the tasbih that you do and all the du'as that you do, so that you perform all the sunnahs. And this you cannot do unless you learn them, unless you study jurisprudence, you've studied fiqh, and you've studied the fiqh of prayer, and you've learned it. From here you would know the sunnah. What are the sunnahs of prayer? And we said in the previous lesson, which is something really important, there's a difference between those there's a difference between those who do a sunnah and know that it is a sunnah, and there's another person who does a sunnah but he doesn't know it's a sunnah. He just saw people doing it and he doesn't know whether they're doing a sunnah or not. So who gets more reward? The one who does the sunnah knowing that it is a sunnah. And why is that the case? Because he knows that when he's doing it, he's following the Prophet ﷺ. So that basically reflects in his intention. Because when he's doing the sunnah with the intention that it is come from the Prophet ﷺ, so he is following the Prophet ﷺ. He gets the reward of following the sunnah, and through that he gets the spiritual assistance and the madad and the spiritual openings when you intend following the Prophet ﷺ, who is the one who said, "Pray the way you've seen me pray." So for this reason, you should know the sunnahs of prayer, all of the sunnahs of prayer. And here, Habib mentioned a story. From the life of Habib Ahmad bin al-Aidrus, who's buried in Egypt. In his day and age, in Azhar, there were scholars, Azharite scholars. They were like the greatest scholars at that time. So when the time of prayer came, one of the 5 daily prayers, and a group of the Azhari ulama and the ulama of Egypt came to this mosque, and then they were in doubt who will lead the prayer, because all of them were ulama, all of them were awliya, all of them were great ulamas. So one of them said, whoever can enumerate the most number of sunnahs, he should be the imam. It's like a competition. Whoever can enumerate the most number of sunnahs, he deserves to be in the front. So the first alim said many sunnahs, and then second one said more, and the third came with 60, and the fourth came with 100, until it reached this Sayyid Ahmad bin Yusuf al-Aidrus, and he said he was trying not to like partake, but they insisted. So out of his humility, he started until he reached 500 sunnahs. He enumerated 500 sunnahs. Nowadays, if we test ourselves and ask how many sunnahs we can come up with right now, test yourself by yourself. We'll find ourselves in a difficult situation, meaning this means we haven't established prayer the way Allah wants us to pray. Yes, true, we're praying, alhamdulillah. We're not from those who leave prayer, and we make dua that Allah does not make us or any of our children or family members from those who leave prayer. But Allah didn't say pray, He said establish prayer. And you can't be called somebody who is establishing prayer but at the same time missing a sunnah. So for this reason, look, or one would say this 500 sunnah, this is exaggeration, but it's not exaggeration. If you go into details, there are 500 sunnahs, but if you go into like Like for instance, from the sunnahs of prayer is to use the siwak stick. So that is one sunnah. But the siwak itself has many sunnahs. So if you open that up, you will have sunnahs that add to the sunnahs of prayer. Like for instance, you use a siwak with your right hand, and it should be not smaller than the horizontal width of your hands, and not longer than the vertical height of your hands. It should be changed every week. You should start from the right side of your mouth, and you should in the end also scrub on his tongue. These are sunnahs from the sunnah of siwak, and you can think about the rest. So in every sunnah there are musannas and etiquettes. Similarly, the ruku, for instance, the bowing has sunnahs, the tasbih has sunnahs and adab. And then he mentions the positions. What are these positions? In the Shafi'i school, they mention the sunnahs of prayer, the obligations of prayers, and then there's the hayat, which is the movements of prayer, like raising your hands. So raising one's hands when you're saying the first takbir is from the hay'a, or the movement or the motions of prayer, or raising your finger when you are in tashahhud. So every movement in your prayer that has come in the sunnah is from the hay'a, it's from the motions or forms of prayer. Because there's some people they say, oh, it's sunnah, so we don't have to do it. Like we know there are other madhabs who don't have raising of the hands as sunnah, but we're talking about people who are practicing Shafi madhab. Like for instance, folding your hands is a form of sunnahs. Someone can say, I don't want to put my hands together, I'll put my hands down. It's your prayer was correct, but you've left one sunnah. So you do as many sunnahs as possible, because the Prophet ﷺ said, pray the way you saw me pray. You've seen how I raise my hands, how I say salams, everything. Because these forms have start and end. Like the ruku, the bowing is the starting of the bare minimum ruku. The bare minimum ruku is that your back be bent, and your hands be on your knees. And the complete form is that your back be completely horizontal or parallel to the ground. So every single form has a bare minimum and a complete form. And then the invocations or the dhikr that you do within these forms. The prayer from start till end is all dhikr. There's no silence in prayer. So you should do all of the dhikr. The least dhikr you can do in the bowing and the prostration is to do it 3 times. If you do less, then even though your prayer is correct, but it's deficient. The problem with some people is that they leave it knowing it's sunnah, and they say it's sunnah, no problem, doesn't break your prayer. So you looking down or belittling sunnah is a form of bad manners, because the Prophet ﷺ taught us sunnahs so that we implement them, not that we leave them. So if somebody knows a sunnah and leaves it without without any excuse is somebody who has bad manners. That means you don't respect the Prophet ﷺ. This is his sunnah. This is something that it belongs to him. This is something that is sacred. This is related to the essence and the personality of the Prophet ﷺ. So if you leave it on the basis of it just being a sunnah, it's not obligatory, we're not talking about reward. We're talking about your relationship with the Prophet ﷺ, because you'll be asked on the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment, you'll be asked about leaving the obligations and also leaving the sunnahs. The judgment on the Day of Judgment, the judgment on the last day, as we mentioned in another lesson, is that your judgment won't be just on sins. It will also be on your blessings, and your greatest blessing is the Prophet ﷺ. If you see that everything that has come to you from the Prophet ﷺ is the greatest blessing, you'll be asked about it. And the Prophet ﷺ is the greatest blessing himself. He said, as Allah said, that he is a mercy to all of creation. So him in his essence is the greatest blessing. So all the things that come from him, his adab, his sunnahs, his all the things that he did are actually great blessings. Like for instance, if you take the toothstick, the siwak, it is something. It is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and it is a means of attaining Allah's good pleasure. And then he says that every single invocation in your prayer, every sunnah that you do in your prayer has a secret. Every single thing you do in prayer has a sir. Either the secret would be in the dhikr that you do, or the action that you do, whether it's the stillness or a movement. If it's said to you to be still, then be still, because the secret is in the stillness. And if it's said for you to move, like for instance, move your head to your right when you're saying salams, because that means the secret is in the movement, because Allah Azza wa Jal has not commanded us to do anything that is of no use. Imam Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him, said that you don't have to know the secret for it to impact you, because some people they say some person, this person or the other person, mashallah, he knows the secret, I don't know anything. You don't need to know the secret. Whoever follows these etiquettes will have the secrets within those actions impact them. And also, if you do these actions not knowing the secret, it is a sign of your sincerity, because you should be doing them with the intention of following the Prophet ﷺ, not because you know the secret. Because, for instance, somebody says to you, if you pray these two prayers, Allah will make your rizq grow, and then he starts doing those two prayers, and but his intention behind those two prayers is not Allah Azza wa Jal, but to have his rizq grow, his money grow. So all of this, preserving the sunnahs of the Prophet, of the salah, and the movements. And then Shafi, there's another thing, there's ab'ad, or some things that happen like the qunut at Fajr. So to guard these, or to preserve these, is not just for the obligatory prayer that you pray, but also the voluntary, the sunnah ones that you pray. You should be consistent in them, so that you become of those who take upon themselves all the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ. Some people just guard these etiquettes and sunnahs only in the obligatory prayer. But when he prays sunnahs, they pray very quickly, and they fall short in following all the sunnahs. You guarding the sunnahs in the sunnah prayers, in the voluntary prayers, it will help you guard them or be consistent in them when you're doing your obligatory prayers, because the voluntary prayers help you preserve the obligatory prayers.
للصلاة صورة صورها رب الأرباب كما صور الحيوان مثلا، فروحها النية والإخلاص وحضور القلب، وبدنها الأعمال، وأعضاؤها الأصلية الأركان، وأعضاؤها الكمالية الأبعاض. فالإخلاص والنية فيها يجري مجرى الروح، والقيام والقعود يجري مجرى البدن، والركوع والسجود يجري مجرى الرأس واليد والرجل، وإكمال الركوع والسجود بالطمأنينة وتحسين الهيئة يجري مجرى حسن الأعضاء وحسن أشكالها وألوانها، والأذكار والتسبيحات المودعة فيها تجري مجرى آلات الحس المودعة في الرأس والأعضاء كالعين والأذن وغيرهما، ومعرفة معاني الأذكار وحضور القلب عندها يجري مجرى قوة الحس المودعة في آلات الحس كقوة السمع وقوة البصر والشم والذوق في معادنها.
Imam al-Ghazali, may Allah have mercy on him, is saying that he says that no, that prayer has a form that Allah Azza wa Jal has just as Allah has created a form for animals. This prayer that you pray in this world will transform into an image, into a form on the Day of Judgment, and this is something the believer will see in his grave, because the realm of the graves, or the barzakh, the intermediary realm, this is the time period which is between this world after you die till the hereafter. It is a temporary station until everyone on this world will die, and then they will be resurrected, and then the final day will start, and the resurrection will happen. So your prayer is shown to you in your grave, and all of us would wish to see our prayers in the best of form. So your deficiencies in prayers will form, or will deform the form of prayer that appears to you in your grave. Look, for instance, if a person left one of the sunnahs of prayer, and he would see the image or the form of his prayer. Imagine if it's a form of a man, he would see it, like, let's say, like, for instance, without an ear, or one-eyed, or his nose is broken, or without eyebrows, for instance, or without fingers, for instance. This is the deformation. And it would say to you, I am your prayer. The more you fall short in your sunnahs, it appears as a deformity in the image of your prayer. And it is from Allah's mercy that Allah shows the image of their actions in their dreams before they die. And unfortunately, people don't know. They think it's just nightmares. True, some of them can be nightmares, but some of them are actually representations or forms of your actions, and the sign of their true indication towards your actions that they repeat, they keep coming to you again. Like, for instance, a person sees it once or twice in a week or a month. Some people see dreams daily or weekly or monthly. That means there's a message. The devil does not keep repeating the same dream. He changes the dream. There's nothing consistent with him. But if you see a dream that repeats, that means there's a message. So you need to understand the message. So you need to go to somebody who can interpret that dream. So for this reason, you find yourself short in your prayer. In your dream, you find yourself short, or you find yourself bald, while in this world you have thick hair, or he finds himself without a beard, or for instance, he finds himself appearing to be naked in the dream, walking naked in front of people. What does that mean? Or he's in front of them, in front of people wearing his pajamas, or he's praying with his chest open. So if you see things like this, that means there's a deficiency. This is why Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam saw a dream, and this is the Prophet seeing this dream. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that men from his ummah, or people from his ummah, were presented to him. They were visiting him. So Umar ibn Khattab came, and he was wearing a really long dress. It was longer than what usually people wear. So how did the Prophet ﷺ interpret that? He said, this means of your dream. Your dream is strong, and you're covered. As long as you're covered, that means you're safe. Which also means that if you see the opposite, meaning if you see deficiency or less clothes, or there's something unusually short about your clothes, that means there's a deficiency. Some people will say, well, it's just a simple dream. There is something wrong happening. There's a message happening. A person may find himself naked, and he doesn't know that that might be the image of his prayer, praying with his trunks on, or he's just wearing a nizar. He found himself praying in his dream just wearing a izar. That means this is how your prayer is. Meaning, if you were to die today, your prayer will appear like this. You will see a person come to your grave who will just have an izar on, with nothing, with no turban, no clothes, no perfume, and so for this reason, a person should be awake and notice these messages, and reflect on these messages that come. And then there are people who see even worse dreams, where they find themselves praying with najas, or impurity on them, which means is that your prayer is not accepted. So in summary, what Imam al-Ghazali is saying is that your prayer will come in the form of how it's done, and every one of us wants the form of our actions be in a very beautiful form. So don't leave sunnahs. If your nafs comes and becomes lazy, then remind it of what you want your actions to appear like on the Day of Judgment. Like when people are applying for jobs or work in this world, and the requirements are like 10 documents. You have to, and the condition is that even if one of the documents is missing, they won't accept it. And we know that this is from the mercy of Allah, is that the sunnahs, in that the sunnahs that you do in wudu and the sunnahs that you do in prayer, they actually intercede before Allah for your prayer to be accepted. Like for instance, a person uh, uh, did all the adab, did all the sunnahs, but in his prayer he was in and out. He was a little bit in, a little bit out. But what happens is that because he did all the sunnahs, those sunnahs will intercede for him. Like a student, sometimes his understanding in class is limited, but he is well mannered in class. He doesn't disturb the class. He respects the teacher. He does as much as he can. So he gets a rank because of his good manners. And that the good manners make up for the deficiency in his intellect. And such is the case for the sunnahs. And the sunnahs do that for the other deficiencies in your prayer, like presence of heart. So if a person is beautiful in appearance and his clothes are clean, but his smell is not good, would that help? Would the good appearance help him? No, it won't. Similarly, the Imam Ghazali is saying that the sunnahs in prayer are like this, that each sunnah completes the other. Like some sunnahs are like the two eyes, some sunnahs are like the two ears, some sunnahs are like the good smell. So you don't know which sunnah represents good smell or perfume. So prayer is like a gift by which you come close to Allah. And Imam Ghazali gives examples for this, like if one of us were to give a gift, or to gift the sultan a servant, for instance, but the servant is blind, or the servant is mute, or the servant is deaf, or the servant cannot walk, or the servant does not have hands, and he says, "O king or sultan, this is a gift for you." How would that servant help? How would the servant be spoken to? This is how your prayer is. If you fall short in the sunnahs of wudu here and there, the image, the form of your actions will appear strange, like or deformed, like blind or deaf or disabled. Is it befitting for you to give a dear friend of yours a broken phone that doesn't work, or a pen that doesn't work, or a watch that doesn't work, or you give him or it doesn't have a battery? Like you say, I give you, I'm buying you this gift, but you need to buy the battery.
كافية في التقرب بها إلى السلطان ونيل الكرامات منه فاعلم أن الصلاة الناقصة صالحة للتقرب بها إلى الله سبحانه ونيل الكرامات منه. يعني لا تقف عند الفقيه يقول لك صلاتك صحيحة.
Don't stop at the jurist who says your prayer is correct, but look for the acceptance of prayer. Why is that? Because not every prayer that is correct is accepted. If the prayer is outwardly correct, a prayer is correct in terms of the jurist. Like we always give the example that a person prayed, like he covered his nakedness, which is from the navel to the knee. He just covered that part, and he didn't do any sunnahs, and he just did the fara'id, and he prayed. As per the jurists, your prayer is correct, but it's not a prayer that is accepted. Meaning, what does it mean by not accepted? Meaning no reward. Meaning this is bad manners before Allah. You're somebody who has no manners. This is how, if you invite someone to your house and you say I have a wedding ceremony, or I have a akika or whatever, a special occasion, and then your guest comes wearing a izar only. This is embarrassment. This is like somebody having no manners, and the host would think, I wish I never invited you in the first place. And this is how the servant is before Allah. He's deprived of many many things because of bad manners. Deprived of what? But deprived of entering in that hadra, in that divine presence and communion. So he said, don't look for the jurist's opinion that your prayer is correct, but look for whether your prayer is accepted. We want our prayers to be accepted, not just be correct. So he says that it's come in a hadith, in some of the narrations, that the prayer, if a person prays a prayer and he established the prayer properly, it leaves him like a clean white garment. It ascends to the heavens, white, pure, clean, perfumed, and it makes dua for the one who prayed like that. He says, may Allah guard you and protect you the way you guarded me and protected me. Meaning, if you do all the sunnahs, praying on time in congregation, it makes the dua, may Allah protect you the way you protected me. And the prayer, the action stays protected and preserved. But if you neglect it and you don't pay much attention to it, and neglecting means any of the sunnahs, even if it means our congregation prayer, and it makes the dua against that person, may Allah lose you the way you lost me. And most of the problems people are facing nowadays, because they find themselves lost, is because of the du'as they have received against them from their prayers. The first question we ask them when they have all of these problems in their lives, we ask them, how are you with your prayers? Are you neglecting the sunnahs? So if you are, then the prayer will be making dua against you, that may Allah lose you, make you be lost. So and as a result, you find yourself having no direction in life. And we've learned from our teachers that to preserve the prayers, means also to preserve the voluntary prayers, meaning you preserve the voluntary, like witr, just as how you preserve just as how you preserve the obligatory. And even in obligatory action, even in voluntary actions, the sunnahs, there are adab. Like for instance, whoever is consistent in the midday prayer, the duha prayer, to get the impact, the spiritual impact of that prayer, you have to be consistent in doing it. You can't, and the ulama say you cannot take the impact of dhikr without consistency and repetition. You can't have the impact of prayer, of dhikr, except through consistency, persistency. Similarly, Quran, like if a person said, I will read 5. A person says, I'm going to read I'm going to read I'm going to read one juz every day of the week, and another person comes and says, well, if that means you're going to read 7 juz, I'm going to read them all in one day, and the other 6 days I'll just relax. That's not the correct way to do. The correct way is to see every single day as a part of your life. If you ask a person how many times do you live, in this life, they will say we live only once. That's wrong. You live your life every single day. You have an opportunity. You live every single moment. You don't live once. Every day you are living. Every hour, every moment you're living, because you are encompassed in all of these blessings. Like for instance, if you were to drink a cup of tea, or if you have a sickness and you don't enjoy, like for instance, if you're staying in a 5-star hotel, uh, and you're in the 5-star hotel and you have this anxiety and worry because of which you couldn't sleep all night, did you benefit from that 5-star hotel and all that comfort that was there? No. And what deprived you of that sleep was maybe something really petty. So don't belittle all of these great blessings that we ask Allah that He grants us enabling grace to do that which pleases Him, and He makes us of those who establish and guard the prayer and preserve the prayer, and He makes us those who are true to their covenant. Allah accept our prayers, forgive us and our parents and all the believers, make us of those who establish the prayers and our progeny. Allah forgive us and our parents and all the believing men and women, outwardly and inwardly, and we seek your forgiveness for all the times we've fallen short in doing any sunnah, in any of our prayers, in any form of worship, in any movement and any stillness. We seek your forgiveness from all the times we left sunnahs neglectfully or belittling them. Also, Allah, overlook our faults and our lack of good manners. Make us steadfast until we meet you and you are pleased with us after a long and healthy and life full of well-being. With praise and salutation be upon our Master sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. وجزاك الله خير، متابع من تريم الغنى ما شاء الله. محمد، وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته، وجزاك الله خير على المتابعة. عبد الله هاشمي، وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته، وجزاك الله خيرا كذلك. ابتهال، وجزاكم الله خير شاء الله، وجزاكم الله خير على المتابعة. وسيد عادل الهاشمي وجزاكم الله خير، ويدعو للمساعدين جزاكم الله خير جميعا. تمام.
في شخص عليه قضاء صلوات،
أيوة،
مثلا حط لنفسه جدول
خليه يسمعنا إذا ممكن. بسم الله.
The question is, if somebody has missed prayers and he heard this and he will say, I will focus on making up my missed prayers because that's a debt on me, and I won't pray my sunnah prayers. So he missed his prayers. Does he focus on the sunnah prayers when he has all these obligatory prayers that he's missed? So he prays his fard, especially if he's missed his prayers intentionally. So if he is remorseful for missing the sunnahs because he's doing his obligatory missed prayers, and he's made the intention that once he finishes all of his obligatory prayers, he will start his sunnahs, then he'll be rewarded for that. The people who have spent 60 years and haven't prayed a single prayer.
أحمد وجزاكم الله خير وبارك الله فيكم ويحفظكم جميعا. الأخت نادرة صفر، والله يبارك فيكم. عبد الله الهاشم يقول عندي سؤال، لو نسيت صلوات أقضيها أو لا؟
The questioner is asking, if I forget that I prayed, do I make it up or not? From the excuses of prayer is forgetfulness and travel. And the excuse means you're not sinful for it, but you have to make it up. Meaning he thought he prayed, he thinks he has prayed, but he hasn't. And then, meaning he made wudu to pray, and then he got an important call and he got busy in his call, and then he thought that he has prayed already. So whoever forgets that he has prayed, he does qada. Even your voluntary prayers, your nawafil, do you make up your nawafil, your voluntary prayers, like the rawatib, which like the 4 sunnahs before dhuhr? Do you make it up? Do you make up them when you miss them? I'll give you, Habib has said the rule is that any prayer that has a specific time, any sunnah that has a specific time, it is sunnah to make it up if you missed it, like the duha, like the sunnahs before and after prayer, like the Eid, for instance. If somebody missed the Eid because he couldn't wake up, in the Shafi madhab, it is sunnah to pray them again, as qada, even if he's praying on his own. And obviously this includes the sunnahs of the obligatory, like the 2 before Fajr, the 4 before Dhuhr and after, etc. And also Taraweeh. If a person he was sick in Ramadan, and then later on he became well, then he makes up for, it's sunnah for him to, he makes up for the Taraweeh that he missed.
هل يمكن جمع الصلاة الفائتة لسنين مع النوافل بنية واحدة مثل قيام الليل وضحى وغيرها يصلي في صلاة الفجر؟
Can you mix the intention of missed prayer with your voluntary prayers? Like for instance, a person missed obligatory prayer and he wants to pray duha with it. A person missed Fajr many years, and then he says, if I'm making up these Fajr prayers, should I just pray the Fajr Qada, the missed Fajr, and then make Sunnah or intention that you're doing the Sunnah Fajr? No, you can't do that. Your prayer is invalid. Except some Sunnahs. There are some Sunnahs you can do with the Fard, like the Sunnah of Wudu, the 2 rakats of Tawbah, the istikhara and the dua, the prayer of Hajjah. These prayers, or the prayer that you pray when you enter a mosque, these can be intended with obligatory prayers. Like for instance, a person enters a mosque and the Imam has already started praying, so he can make intention that he's praying Fajr with the intention of Sunnah of Wudu, and also the Sunnah of entering the mosque, and also the Sunnah of forgiveness. Allah forgives, pardons me, and the Sunnah of fulfilling the needs, Qada al-Haja. But to mix it with Sunnah of Fajr or the Sunnah of Duha, no, because these are prayers that have their specific time. And there's a benefit here, Habib will tell us. Whoever's missed a lot of prayers, if he can make up the prayers, that's really good. The sunnahs that he's missed, that would require someone to have strong iman. But there's a way to make it up for it. If you missed a lot of voluntary prayers, then you make up for them by doing a lot of tasbih of baqiyat salihat, which is subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar, 100 times, 200 times, 1,000 times, and once you completed it, you end it with adda khalqi wa rida nafsi zinat arshi, in hope that they would make up for all of the reward that you missed out on when you missed those voluntary prayers. Like for instance, they say, if you entered the mosque and you didn't pray, and you couldn't pray the tahiyyat al-masjid, the prayer of the mosque, you do the baqiyat al-salihat. You say subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar. Meaning, don't just sit there idle. Make up for it. Because what is intended is the reward. So if you missed a lot of voluntary prayers, then make up for them by doing dhikr. And dhikr has great reward. And most of the people who will regret the most on the Day of Judgment are those who missed out on the opportunities of doing zikr. And similarly, this includes salutations upon the Prophet ﷺ. And this is something we'll cover in the Friday lesson of Taj al-Urus.
طيب هذا يقول هناك إنسان أضاع صلوات كثيرة أو ما كان يصلي بالأصل.
So if there's a person who's missed a lot of prayers, like 20 prayers, 20 years of prayers, and does he have to make up? Does he have to make up all those prayers? This is unfortunately a problem that's quite common nowadays. The people who for 20, 30 years who haven't prayed. And then it just so happens he heard a lecture or he read a verse and he repented. So what we say to him is that if you're true in your tawbah, then your making up those misprayers will be easy. You making up those misprayers will be easy. But if you can't make up, then there's a sign that your tawbah was deficient. Your tawbah was deficient, and your faith is weak. And they're like people who worship Allah on the edge. Meaning, if they find any difficulty, they leave everything. Such kind of people, we tell them, pray the daily prayers, and if you can, then pray the missed prayers. Meaning, let's say you missed 20 years of prayer, so you prayed Fajr today, then pray the Qada for Fajr. And so with every Qada, every prayer, you pray the Qada for that. We can't tell them don't pray, because this is the right of Allah. But we can say, to make it easy for them, to encourage them, so that they, may Allah help us. What is the difference between Musalla and Masjid? Masjid is a land that has been purchased for Allah, and it has been given up for Allah Azza wa Jal. Meaning somebody bought this land and he's devoted it for Allah, and it becomes a mosque, even if there's no building on top of it. Masjid means that land. Kaaba is the land upon which the wall has been built. The wall is just a symbol, but the Kaaba is the land, the piece of land upon which the Kaaba was built. Similarly, the mosque, that piece of land that has been given up for Allah Azza wa Jal, that's called masjid. Musalla, on the other hand, is a place that has been made for prayer, like how some companies do. They make up a room for prayer. They haven't submitted it to Allah. They haven't said this is for Allah only. Here, what's the difference between this and the mosque? The difference is that in the musalla, there's not sunnah for you to pray the two welcoming prayers when you enter the mosque. Also, you don't have reward for doing i'tikaf, and you're not rewarded for walking to it because it's not a mosque. The hadith, the Prophet said that whoever leaves his house intending to walk to the mosque, he gets a reward for every step. You won't get that reward when you're walking to the musalla. But his only reward would be that his steps are for Allah Azza wa Jal in general. But he will be rewarded for his congregation, his prayer in congregation, which is 27 times.
يسأل عن لبس الخاتم، هل هو سنة أو في فضل وفي أي يلبس؟ نعم،
Somebody's asking, is wearing a ring a sunnah? Wearing a ring is from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet ﷺ would stamp using his with his ring that he would wear. He would stamp, or he would wear on his right finger, rightmost finger. He would also have a ring from aqiq stone, and we are commanded to follow the Prophet ﷺ in acts of worship and acts of in his habits as well. Some people say the Prophet ﷺ wore a ring as a habit, or somebody says the Prophet ﷺ would wear a turban, like how the Arabs would wear turbans at that time. So people would say that wearing a turban was a tradition of the Arabs, so he would wear like them. So it's not a sunnah. So let's say we hypothetically assume what you're saying, right? That even though it's wrong what you're saying, the Prophet did not follow it, did not wear the turban following the tradition of his time. But let's say we assume you're right. If I follow the Prophet following the Prophet and I wear the ring following the Prophet, I will be rewarded for following the Prophet, because Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded us to follow the Prophet without conditions. Meaning it says, if you love Allah, then follow me. It means follow him in everything, in the acts of worship, in his habits, in whatever he did, except the things that were solely for him. Like those things you're not allowed to follow. So he would wear his ring on his rightmost finger and also in his leftmost finger, as come in some of the hadith. In the musalla, the woman who is in her menstrual cycle can enter, but in the mosque she cannot enter.
إذا كان فعلا هذا المسجد أو هذا المكان في ألمانيا عندهم لا يعتبر مسجد، أي لم توقف قطعة أرض مسجدا، نعم يجوز لها أن تجلس فيه. فيرجع هذا إلى النية.
If the land where this musalla is not gifted to Allah as a mosque, then the woman can stay in there if she's in her menstrual cycle. Is it permissible for us to pray behind somebody who does not have his Fatiha correct? In Shafi madhab, it's not permissible. There's mistakes in Fatiha that don't change the meaning, and then there's mistakes who change the meaning. If he makes mistakes that change the meanings, then the prayer is invalid. If he makes mistakes that don't change the meaning, then it doesn't break the prayer. But if he says Alhamdulillahu Rabbil Alameen, it does not change the meaning. If he says Alhamdulillahi, this does not change the meaning, but it changes it's a wrong grammatical wrong grammar. But if he says instead of an'amta alayhim, it says an'amtu alayhim, or he removed a letter. If he says siratal ladina an'amta alayhim, he removed he removed the hamza with the hamza al-wasat, hamza qata, which is you have to stop and say an'amta. So the Imam Habib has to repeat his prayer sometimes when he hears the Imams, or he changes a letter, like instead of alladhi he says allazina, or he says a'uzu instead of a'udhu. These are also mistakes. Or he changes the da with the za. I mean, there are minority opinions, but one should be careful about his prayers. In such situations, is it better to pray alone? No, what is better is to look for another prayer, another congregation where they pray correctly. You should never pray alone. Even if you miss the first prayer, look for the second prayer, second congregation. And this only happens if you're 100% sure that his Fatiha is wrong. If you find another congregation that is correct in their prayer, then that's better for you to do. Is a sister asking that I pray behind my son as an imam, but sometimes he makes mistakes in the grammatical part. As long as it doesn't change the meaning, it's correct. And if he makes mistakes as a woman, you cannot correct. A man can correct the imam, and when he corrects the imam, he does not intend to correct him, but intend to correct with the intention of reciting the Quran. That's the opinion of the Shafi'i madhab. Firstly, if your mother, Habib, he congratulates you and he appreciates that you are praying in congregation. So you can prep your son by saying that that I'm making you as an imam, so this is a great responsibility, because prayer for me is the most important thing between me and Allah Azza wa Jal. So you can ask him to read before the prayer, so you can correct him.
بالنسبة أحيانا الواحد يكون حافظ آيات جديدة، هل يسمح لمن خلفه يسمح لمن خلفه وهو إمام أن يصحح له وهو ماسك المصحف أثناء الفريضة وجزاكم الله خير. نعم يجوز ذلك.
If somebody is holding a Quran behind the Imam,
إذا مسك المصحف ما تكون حركاته كثيرة يعني تكون حركاته مضبوطة.
is it okay for him to correct the Imam? Yes.
السيدة عائشة كذلك كانت تقرأ جنبين من المصحف.
Sayyidina Aisha used to read the Quran, used to pray with, reading from the Quran. May Allah make us of those who are accepted. Al-Fatiha.